the head of program management at Adjust. And I am going to be talking about navigating marketing success in the privacy era. And I am super excited to be talking about this because usually I'm asked to talk about SCAN. And this is adjacent to SCAN, but it's not full-on SCAN. So yay, I'm excited for that. All right, what are we going to be talking about? So we're going to do a quick introduction. How did we get here? What is the lay of the land? What kind of challenges have marketers or are marketers facing today? And then I'm going to talk about 3 different methodologies that are much improved over the years, and especially now is the time to investigate them, see if they would be good and applicable to you, to your marketing. So it's going to be incrementality, MMM, predictions, and then I'll wrap up by giving some suggestions of next steps and key takeaways. All right, so why do we need new strategies? A colleague of mine had this quote, and I thought it was funny because it's from many, many years ago. And half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. So I feel like we had time where we were going gangbusters, we had data granularity, and we were able to make all of the great decisions we wanted to. And then privacy it's not new. It has slowly become more and more of a topic, and it's been stripping away some of that granularity in our data that we relied so heavily on in the past. And so now it kind of feels like we're back in the, well, half is wasted, I just don't know which half. So these are the culprits, yeah, SCAN and GDPR, all these different regulations. Pretty sure you're probably familiar with all of these elements, walled gardens, so big players like Meta and Google hold tight to their data, and there's only so much granularity they let out. So when talking to clients, here are some of the challenges that they have been facing, that you guys have been facing. And I won't read them all to you, but the general gist is a lack of user-level data, so that granularity is no longer available as we would want it to be. And that makes it hard to know where to allocate your budget. And also identifying success drivers, how do you test, where can you get that data on what is working and what isn't? And really understand your return on investment and your LTV. That measurement has become challenging. So then current approaches, these are some tactics that I see and hear about clients using at the moment. One is switching to value bidding with Google and Meta, for example. Web-based campaigns, so more web-based campaigns, looking for workarounds, relying on your first-party data, in-house models, and of course, when SCAN came out, there was a shift of budget towards Android. But there are drawbacks to all of these, and one is the changes to your campaign mix is you have different audiences potentially, you have smaller audiences, and so you're not as familiar with those users potentially. And want to highlight the workaround thing. A lot of clients talk to me and my colleagues about, oh, well, especially with SCAN, can I just do this and this little trick and that little trick? And honestly, sometimes, yes, you can. But thinking about it practically, a lot of those are not long-term solutions, and they're not sustainable. So it's kind of more, I think, more beneficial to you to jump in, try the new tools, test some things out, have conversations with partners who can help you, and go straight for the real solution instead of that workaround. And of course, iOS revenue is down if you're not running as much on iOS, but we have Google Privacy Sandbox coming at some point, maybe 2030, who knows, but it's coming at some point. So that will also be a factor. But what are some advantages that we have today more than we had in the past? So again, none of this is new. But I think now is the time when this technology, these models, is becoming stronger and better and more accessible to a wider range of the industry. And a lot of that is because there's this boost in data modeling by leveraging AI, of which machine learning is a component. So a lot of everything I'm talking about today actually is geared by or run by machine learning, and can leverage all sorts of different data, and while remaining privacy compliant, and also being able to leverage aggregated data. So ultimately, what you're trying to do is build a path to success and to solve those key set of challenges. And how might we do this? So incrementality is first up. I'll focus mostly on incrementality because all three of these methods are related, and there might be different combinations of what could be leveraged and most important for you and work the best. I will also say that I'm not going to go deep into how you can specifically start tomorrow, but to give you the lay of the land and understand in general what are these methods and how can they benefit you. First thing, the hardest part of incrementality for me is spelling it. Spell checker does not know it, and I looked it up in Urban Dictionary, so it does exist. So keep track of that. I think they'll start to improve spell check. But kidding aside, incrementality is all about marketing influence. So it's going beyond that last touch and these methods that we're used to, and seeing impact of your marketing efforts. So you're basically trying to target understanding your audience is making purchases, for example, but how much more are they purchasing as a result of your marketing efforts? And a lot of times we are blind to some of the influences because we're so focused on those lower funnel metrics. And to show this as an example, now this is a very high-level, kind of silly example, but you've got marketer A and marketer B, which you can see here on the screen, and the same spend, and then you see, oh, wow, they're brought in all these installs, all these users, earned this much revenue, so clearly marketer A is my winner because it made so much higher ROAS than my marketer B. The thing you don't consider, though, is all of the influences. So that's very much a last touch, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you go one step beyond and looking into the incremental effect, and you run incremental analysis, that quick analysis could have been very misleading. So when you run an incrementality test on these marketer A and B, you actually discover that marketer A was doing a lot of organic cannibalization. So actually, a lot of those users would have come to your app and made purchases regardless. And when looking at those stats, marketer B was actually your winner in bringing in the right revenue. So there's a bigger picture than we are traditionally looking at, which is one of the values of running incrementality tests. So now, what is incrementality? Most of you are probably familiar with it, talking about A/B testing, which that is a lot of what it is. You're looking at your control group and your test group, and you're seeing what the influence, you made a change, you started a campaign, you changed a budget, something like that. And as a result, what effect did that have versus had you done nothing at all? So why do it? Well, because there are more and more challenges with measuring your attribution. And use case, for example, is you have a new campaign in the US and you're targeting user installs, or you could be looking at specific events. And your goal is to see an increase, but not only straight linear to that campaign, you also want to know what kind of effect it has overall in your mix and what that incremental effect looks like. So this is essentially what incrementality is working towards. And the terms that you'd want to understand is incremental lift. Obviously, that's the best. You make a change, you add a channel, you increase your budget. It has incremental lift in general over your whole marketing efforts. And things look great, and you can make more optimizations and decisions based on that. Organic cannibalization, also important to know. You're spending budget, and actually you would have gotten all of those users if you had done nothing. And so that's wasted budget that you can now identify and shift elsewhere. Not significant basically means you ran the campaign, it got returns, but it wasn't a lift and it wasn't stealing anything. And so then you can think about, okay, if I increase my budget a little bit on that campaign, what's the impact now? And you can rerun that analysis. Confidence interval is basically your range of expected values and how confident you are in that prediction, right? Target variable is like your installs, your events. And the part I want to focus on a little bit right now is this last part, control group versus synthetic. So a little bit of a change, being able to leverage machine learning, is that traditionally you're familiar with, you have your control group. So oftentimes you have to set up an A and a B, a control group and a test group. And that can be time consuming, it can potentially disrupt other changes that you're making, and sometimes you don't have the resources or it's just not feasible to run those kinds of tests. At Adjust, what we're looking into is, or what we've built, is a new type of model. So synthetic, which means we use a synthetic control group. And this is where some of the advantages of having data beyond your first-party data is really helpful. So basically what we are doing is you run your campaigns as you would. You make your bid changes, you start something, you stop something, etc. And we've created a synthetic control group. And that means we use the data that we have access to and create a lookalike for you. So you do your normal thing, and we will compare it to all of the information that we have on our side. So it's still privacy compliant, it's all autonomized and leveraging both aggregated data and other data, and non-aggregated data that is still privacy compliant, and comparing that, and the output, of course, is your incrementality result. So this is a new approach, which then reduces the lift on your side, not incremental lift, but effort, and brings you to these results and faster than you could do on your own. And this, in general, lots of companies are working on these types of tools. All right, so some use cases. Probably heard between, it's helpful for seasonality testing. It's helpful for if you have a new channel and you're wanting to see how it impacted, what impact it had. Then you have platform-based optimization. You can look between iOS and Android, for example, and see which channel would benefit from the optimization. Ad fatigue detection, how is your ad potentially, no longer bringing in good targets. To go into one just a little bit deeper, you have increased the budget around a big holiday, and you run an incrementality test to understand, was that beneficial? What did that look like? And in the test, your result is that it was actually organic cannibalization, so you now understand that if you had not run the campaign at all, you would have also received those installs. So a next step would be look at that kind of campaign at a different time frame. What was it? Was it also cannibalizing then, or was it a lift at that time? You can run another analysis on for that channel in a different region, because holidays obviously aren't universal, most at least. All right, so now I'll transition to marketing mix modeling. I always say it wrong, so had to give myself a second. So MMM. I'm not going to dive too deeply into this because incrementality is essentially a key part of the broader topic of MMM, There's a lot of different components, and the main difference is incrementality. The way that Adjust has built it, and I think other companies as well, is it's focusing on single variables, right? So it's more linear, whereas marketing mix, I should just say MMM. I also like M&Ms. But is a little bit broader. So you have multiple variables. So it gets a little bit bigger, and also historically, it's been around for a very long time. But now it's becoming more and more accessible because of machine learning and all of those advancements. So big questions are, where should I allocate my budget? I think one of the best use cases for using an MMM model is around budget allocation, right? So planning your budget. But other questions you might ask are, I increased the price of a purchase in my app. How did that impact sales? What is this specific channel distribution doing? And then, of course, seeing all of the external influences. So this is a little bit breakdown. Again, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty details, but essentially, you're analyzing and forecasting. So if I had done this, then these are my results, or because I did this, these were my results, and what can I address? You're basically trying to look for a recipe for success. What's the right mix of things to understand, and to then appropriately apply the credit to the right channel. It uses regression analysis and other methods, but basically, again, you have your dependent variable, and then you have your independent variables. And the thing about MMM is that you can have multiple independent variables that are feeding into the model. So again, key use case is budget planning. Seeing where am I spending my budget. And based on historical data, which again is another advantage of working with partners on these types of methods, is that you as an individual have first-party data. But understanding all of the influence, you need access to tons more data, seasonality information, competitor information, and a lot of that data can be found in a privacy-compliant way with your various partners, like your MMP, like an Adjust. All right, so concerns, historically, it uses a lot of data, still does, but that's easier to process now with the continued advancements in machine learning. Cost time to build, that's why, part of the solution is work with a partner who's already built the tool, and you basically just have to click a few buttons and you get your results. You might have to wait for the model to learn, that's one of the things. But yeah, have other places do the heavy lifting so that you can focus on the results. You can focus on doing the optimization and using those insights and putting them into action. So lastly, as I try to rush here, predictions. Really quick on predictions. I really threw this in here because based on, all of you have different kinds of apps and different types of what makes sense for you. And predictions is kind of the most granular component. And so essentially what we're working on here with predictions, and there might be different methods out there, but we're trying to forecast a specific metric. And the easiest example is you have your main KPI, day 14 revenue. Of course, the drawbacks with day 14 revenue is you've got to wait 14 days. And so you can't make those optimizations as quickly as you'd like. But again, using historical data, using these models that can forecast and predict, you can actually get a metric after 24 hours of install that predicts what your day 14 revenue from that user, from that campaign, obviously because we'll aggregate the data, but that would bring in. So you can make sooner decisions. You can pause things when it seems like it's wasted budget, and bring all of that together. So real fast, key takeaways. This is kind of all of the components that you can use in combination, one by one, to boost and enrich your measurement. So user journey, we didn't really get into that, but it's also mapping out how did your user find you ultimately, because it's not necessarily just the last touch. And now we're seeing that broader picture, and a lot with these new, even better with these new tools, we can also project into the future. This is a silly slide, but it's basically just all those questions and challenges that from the beginning, and me saying that in some form or fashion, these challenges can be met and addressed by any of these three methodologies. So I highly encourage you looking into them and talking to your partners and educating yourself around them. And lastly, what should you do next? Well, which methods do you think apply to you? What do you want to explore further? Highly encourage that. What questions do you want to answer? Sometimes clients come to me and they ask me, well, I want to do this. And I'm like, okay, well, what's your problem? What are you trying to solve? Give me more. And they need to go back and think about that. So, sit down, think about what is it that you want to answer in a perfect world, and then have those partners help identify the best method for you and how you can solve that particular answer, or get to that particular answer. And then, who are the partners? Obviously, Adjust has tools, other MMPs have tools, and other companies have tools that address specific components of this. But we have the tools now to work within the privacy era. And one thing that clients always, they want to stay in the old world, but you gotta come in the new world. And we have the tools, so don't be too scared. Just find out who has the tools, what kinds of questions you want to answer, and we're getting there. We're getting there with all of the machine learning and a lot of brilliant people working on it. So that is it. Quick before I leave the stage, I know I'm super late, but if you had questions, I am available. You can find me. I'll be at the Adjust booth is just right outside of these doors. So feel free to find me. You can get swag. You can eat a cookie while we chat. So happy to discuss with anyone who wants to. And that's it. Thank you so much.